I'm looking through this and I'm reading about Sojourner in like Parlay whatever, the Sojourner. But it says that they came turn of the 20th century as Sojourner, just temporary stay, just to make enough for a nest egg and to go. Je ne sais pas. Non so. I don't understand, because what I see in New York is Sojourner, wannabe from elsewhere, but they're not the European Jew in here. They're not Swedish. They're not Irish or Italiano. They're not German. They're something different. Now, I'm watching the Eyewitness News on Channel 7. And tonight, even though there's 3 broadcasts, they feature the story twice. They left the 5 out of it. And I think they did a really great job. I'm not the collegiate cheerleader, but they did, in like my isolated incidents, they did pick me as captain of the cheerleading squad for high school. And they had no football, so don't get all like crazy. There was a basketball team. It was like whatever, and like really not, I mean, it was enough sports, but it was whatever in St. Dominic's area. It was more like feather in your cap on a resume for like good pageantry, I suppose. And somebody thought that you were the leader, even as a teenager, of whatever was available in that class. Same as Benjamin got picked by ROTC freshman year. Same concept. So I'm watching as they did this. They're announcing they did this Northstar operation, 10 states nationwide, and I'm like, now do I cheer? Like, am I like, yeah, like, I mean, I want to, but I'm not sure, is that appropriate, like, for cheering for the home team? I mean, because they say that they rounded up 1,500 fugitives all across 10 states over the entire territory. Like, so on the one hand, I'm like, wait, only 10 states participated? Like, what happened to the rest of them? Are they not team players? And then on the other hand, I'm like, at least you got 10. I'm like, okay, well, that's a start. So 1,500, I was like, yeah. And then I did the numbers. Out of 1,500, 339 were New York. Yes! That's more than 150. In fact, it's a much more impressive number, over 150. I'm just saying. If I'm like rooting for Mickey Sticker Club. I never said I was going to stop being a fan. I'm sorry. And just whatever. It's a fan club for life. Okay, so this is what it looked like at 4 o'clock from my whatever.
It sounds nice, Jeff. Thank you. 1,500 fugitives, sex offenders, and violent criminals off the streets this afternoon.
Yeah, all of them were arrested as part of a massive operation by U.S. Marshals, not just here in New York, but all over the country. Eyewitness News reporter Darla Miles is live in Lower Manhattan with the details. Darla.
most number of arrests that were made in this dragnet were here in New York City.
Now it's interesting she uses the word dragnet. I'm just saying, like, this U.S. portion of the us, and this expansion of the not us and not from the big five, flooding into the territory and then like growing this. They're also in the same book, might I add, that hit publication. I don't know, SEC approval. I mean, I had my Series 7. There was something in 1934. There was, I mean, this looks like this is out of Red Herring era and into Blue Sky territory. So I'm just, it for me is like, I'm just trying to fact check here because most of it is, it does, however, make a very clear distinction between subject and citizen. And in that very distinct appraisal of a parent, it very really says that can criticize government actions, and formal say in the government. So at that citizen's level, since natural born citizen, I qualify along with whatever and whatever. It's a real small conversation, or at least it's supposed to be. But this like dragnet and like 10 states, but then 1,500. I mean, we're 4 decades into like our cleanup for whatever our kids inherited. Why am I so far in a nothingness by myself?
City, but the target of this task force was very focused. They wanted the most violent criminals and the most wanted high-profile crimes.
The Travis Blake case that had killed 3 people and the bodies were found decomposing in Queens.
2 women and 1 man brutally murdered days before their
Now, this case that he speaks of, it does not come across my chair. Unless Channel 7 Eyewitness News mentions it, I never even hear of it. That's what NYPD handles in whatever they got going on. While there's very real Department of Education, there's some city organizations, there's been some replacement of some very key figures. There's really a very truly big 5 that have a real big worldly investment and management responsibility as like the overlords to whatever the underground is up to on like the surface of these areas, and of the tracking of movement in and out for public health safety to protect and to serve. I thought that was local level NYPD. I've come to find out that I heard it referenced in a movie. So I'm thinking maybe it's like maybe the real guys, the real military. But again, I don't really have much access, so I don't know.
Their bodies were discovered inside of this South Jamaica home. The suspect, 29-year-old Travis Blake, was tracked down 5 days later in a high-impact fugitive apprehension initiative.
This 30-day initiative, beginning on June 1st and commenced on June 30th, called Operation Northstar, resulted in the arrest of violent criminals in New York City.
Operation Northstar created a strategy to focus on areas that would make the greatest impact on violent crime in these 10 cities, all grappling with the surge in gun violence. Here, the NYPD Warrant Squad and the U.S. Marshal Service concentrating on the Bronx and Manhattan North.
This is about targeted, intelligence-driven crime fighting.
Of more more than 1,500 arrests nationwide. The most were in New York, with 339 violent felons taken into custody for the most serious offenses like murder and attempted murder, robbery, aggravated assault, and sexual assault. However, most suspects were already known to the criminal justice system.
1/3 of the arrests made in New York City during this operation were of people who were previously arrested, arraigned, released, and then failed to appear in court.
And the partnership with the U.S. Marshals Service.
These just for the European Jew, ish, which is where Sojourner and the 20th century mention is within this. I've never heard anyone from Sweden mention it. I've never heard anyone from Ireland or Italy or Germany mention it. It seems to be a new word I just learned, and it's under categorically listed the 20th century European Jew. And I don't know why it says that, but I'm assuming there's some kind of red herring that went out and some kind of agreement at the subjected to beta tests already and with alpha, and then it was somehow packaged up and put out to keep the fourth grade at level with neat and tidy and keeping ports in love with the U.S. Marshal Service and like the real heavy arm of keeping everyone safe. So I'm thinking he does not look, or he or she does not look like a work visa that traveled here for education, and it doesn't look like a sojourner. It looks like perhaps a sojourner, but and which is stay, which I'm like, sojourner non resté. For you cannot stay, not at these quantities and for what's happening around the occurrence of the arrival, especially since they are all not documented and approved by the circulating curriculum. So that should make cleanup a little easier at docks, ports, and interior security, hopefully. But I'm also looking at what they're rounding up, and it does not look like they were temporarily staying. Also looks like if they have movement, it's not the people with patience and good hearts. It just seems like they're to be the ones being taken advantage of. And there's some real people who need real answers to do real jobs and less taking advantage of the circumstances.
This came with funding, manpower, and equipment like ballistic shields and entry training.
The biggest value of this was the training that these men and women got from the marshals. It improved their skills for the future.
Now, there were also arrests made in Brooklyn and in Queens, and there were fugitives from other states found here in New York City. Reporting live in Lower Manhattan, Darla Miles, Channel 7, Eyewitness News.
Darla, thank you. A $50,000 reward is now being offered for information leading to the return of a historic tap.
So that was at 4 when she makes this dragnet, which is a key-op word for I don't know what, because I don't have access to it. But I know it was a law enforcement show at some point in the Americas before I arrived. Now this was the 6 o'clock news.
Of U.S. Marshals and the NYPD.
What also is important is that the people see teams of 10 to 12 members of law enforcement on their block, surging into their neighborhood and taking away the bad guys.
Of more than 1,500 arrests nationwide, the most were in New York, with 339 felons taken into custody for the most serious offenses, like murder and attempted murder, robbery, aggravated assault, and sexual assault. The goal, focusing on neighborhoods that would make the greatest impact on violent crime.
These are violent criminals who committed violent crimes against people in our community.
The national dragnet carried out in these 10 cities, all grappling with a surge in gun violence.
The Justice Department will continue all this summer and as long as it takes to drive these numbers down.
And while the number of shootings and homicides have been down for the last 11 weeks, still, the holiday weekend was rough for the NYPD, with 21 shootings on the 4th of July alone.
This is a very difficult weekend for us to be able to police, but we did so. We had a number of different resources out there. We will continue to work every single day to provide the police officers out there to make the city safe.
Now, tomorrow, the police commissioner will dig deeper into the month's crime stats and will provide more context and information about the 11-week decline in shootings and homicides. That's tomorrow at 1 p.m. But for now, reporting live in Lower Manhattan, Darla Miles, Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
Darla, thank you. Tonight, a man remains in intensive care.
So it's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole, Cattaruzza. It's Earth, solar system, Milky Way, universe, galaxy is broken, and it's Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361. There's this nuance between freedman and free man linguistically that I think whatever at the moment, in saying things without saying things, between the inside out and the upside down. And then there's this thing between subject and citizen with the very distinct difference for what has a say inside the whatever and what does not. There may need to be a third category at some point if it is holding up the hands of justice between a utopian society understanding or overstate of subject and citizen. This particular area in this USA territory having a very magnified need at the moment to be so specific. And then a possibility of a third category, because there's some problems that I already documented on Eyewitness News the other night of what frightens me when there's outside nationals coming through some backdoor channel, becoming a U.S. Army rep, and then having some kind of citizen ceremony, and then all of a sudden being inside of North America. And with that citizen technicality, it could wreak havoc. And I don't know that the investors at the larger five of the original agreement and founders agreement have approved on that, or even aware of how significant and small the detail is, but how they are exploiting it in some area. It's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole, Cattaruzza, Earth, solar system, Milky Way, universe, galaxy is broken, and it's Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361.